Hi there. In this video, I'm going to discuss points of information. Now, there is a huge difference between public speaking and debating. Public speaking is a prerequisite to debating. You cannot effectively debate, at least not verbally, if you're not good at public speaking or you do not have the basic foundation in public speaking. So you need to be able to speak publicly and do well at that to then be able to progress on to debate. Debating and public speaking are not one and the same. One is the requisite or prerequisite of the other, where public speaking is the prerequisite of debating. So what is debating? Debating is not something that you can script. It's not something that you can rehearse, or you can go in prepared for it. You can go in with homework done. You can go in with prepared facts and information and arguments and analysis, but you cannot just simply read off what you have prepared. You have to use what you have prepared. You have to use your homework done, your research done before the debate, or arguments formulated in impromptu debates, or analysis done during your preparation time to engage the other side of the house, whatever that is, proposition or opposition, in an active, responsive, reactive, proactive conversation. And points of information, in whichever format where they factor, where they are allowed, play a very important role to that end, to ensure that it is an active, responsive conversation and not a reading contest, right? Because it puts debaters in this situation where they have to actively question or respond to statements that are being made on the floor by the speaker whose turn it is, in a timely manner, strategic manner, and the speaker who is on the floor, who is required to take the points of information, they are obliged by the rules to aptly, appropriately, adequately respond to those points of information in a way that they probably not have had a chance to rehearse or be prepared for. So do not take points of information lightly. Do not underestimate the value of points of information in the debate formats where they're included. Now, let's take the World Schools Debating Championship style of debating, where you are given 8 minutes. So what happens? In the first minute, from 0 seconds to 1 minute, no debater is allowed to offer a point of information to the speaker on the floor. And the speaker on the floor is not allowed to take any during that time either. And then 7 minute to 8 minute mark or after, no POIs are allowed again. No point of information is allowed again, because these 2 points of the speech, the starting first minute, the last first minute, before we move on to grace time, these are periods where points of information are not allowed, because the first minute is to allow time for the speaker on the floor to have a proper opening, proper setup of his or her speech, make the proper clarification, responses, whatnot. And the last minute is to complete the last argument or start closing the speech. So that's why these 2 stages of the speech are protected time. So what's left is the first minute mark to the 7th minute mark. That's a 6-minute span, right? In Asian parliamentary, where it's a 7-minute speech, that would be a 5-minute span. Okay? Just to illustrate. Now, what happens during that span where POIs are then allowed, right in the middle, that huge chunk in the middle, right? So let's take the WSDC style, the first minute mark to 7 minutes mark. That is when you are allowed to offer POIs to the speaker on the floor when it's not your team's turn to speak. But you cannot use points of information to badger the opponent, to disrupt that opponent's speech by playing jumping jacks non-stop, where one person's standing up to say point of information, turn down, immediately within a second or half a second or 3 seconds, someone else from your team stands up to offer a point of information, then another, then another. You're not allowed to do that. What you are allowed to do is, after the passage of 20 seconds after the last POI was taken, or from the time the last POI was turned down or rejected, or from the time when the last time someone on your team who offered a point of information got tired of waiting and standing and the POI was not taken, and that person sat down. So 20 seconds from then, any one of those three, you're allowed to offer a point of information again. Now that's said and done, even if 20 seconds have passed, but if the speaker on the floor is either still responding to the last POI taken or is still on the same point that he or she, the speaker on the floor, was talking about or covering the last time a point of information was offered and not taken, you can't offer a POI, even if 20 seconds have passed. Until that point, and I don't mean the whole argument. When I say a point, I mean a sub-point, a particular statement or a particular example or particular analysis that the speaker on the floor is presenting, right? So it's not exactly a whole argument where, oh, okay, the person is going to speak for 2 minutes, I don't offer a POI. No, you don't do that, right? So you wait either 20 seconds or until a point has been completed or a response to the previous POI has been completed, and then you stand up again. So maximum, reasonably, and it's quite possible and it happens often enough, in a good, decent, active, engaging debate, one team may offer up to 12 points of information to each speaker on the other side of the house every time those speakers stand up, except for in the reply speeches when points of information are not allowed. So you can offer up to 12 POIs as a team, not as an individual, but as a team, to each speaker from the opposing team, which means up to 36 points of information sometimes may be offered from one team to the other in total. Any more than that, you're probably committing badgering, which is just hackling or disruption, deliberate disruption, that's not constructive to the debate, right? So don't do that, because that's against the rules as well, right? So you can offer up to 36 POIs for one whole team across the room, or one speaker, or 12 POIs for one speaker across the room, up to. Now, generally, back in the day when I used to debate, I would aim to offer at least those many along with my teammates, right? Up to 12 a speaker, maybe 10, right? A good team in a good debate would at least complete before the speaker's turn is up or protector time comes on again, going past 7, for the speaker on the other side of the room who's on the floor. Me and my teammates would get in anywhere between 8 to 10 at least, if not 12, but often enough we would get 12 in, right? So what it does is keeps your opponent on the toes, keeps the pressure on your opponent, and it's a good strategy to make sure that your opponent does not get a clean run without any kind of a distraction or disruption where the person has to think, okay, what am I doing here, that the other side has a question or a clarification to make or a rebuttal to insert. So offer as many as you can, and don't offer points of information for the sake of it. Don't offer points of information where you can ask yourself, okay, what would this do if I were in that person's shoes? If I were to take this POI, what would it do to me? Would it shut me up? Would it stump me? Would I be dumbfounded? Would I be able to address that? If the answer is that, okay, I would not be shut up by that, I would not be dumbfounded by that, I would not be stuck with that, I would not be unable to respond to that, then it's probably a weak POI. It's wasting time, it's wasting an opportunity to strike at your opponent. And you might get a brownie point for having stood up to offer a POI and having gotten that 15 seconds worth of word in, because 15 seconds is the time needed to complete your POI when you offer one. But it's not really going to make any significant difference on the adjudication sheet at the end of the debate to earn the victory in the debate for your team. So make sure you weaponize the information, weaponize the words, weaponize the option and opportunity to offer their POI. Now that said, what you can do to your opponent with a POI, your opponent can do to you. The very worst mistake that any new debater can make is that when they stand up, they go, okay, now I'm running out of stuff to say. Or it might be a good idea for me to take that POI so that I have an opportunity of a conversation, and I can keep going. I've got content to deliver and I can earn points on content like that. No, that's not how it works, because your opponent does not want to help you get content points with the points of information they raise. They want to stump you, they want to prove you wrong, they want to prove your knowledge inadequate on the topic that you're talking about, that you're expounding on. So take as few POIs as possible. If I were in a debate, the moment that protected time ends, the bell rings for the first time, or the first clap in the room at the end of 1 minute of my opponent's speech, I'd be up on my feet to offer that POI. If I am taking a POI, I won't take that one that comes at the very first minute. Not only will I not take the first POI that comes at the very first minute when it's allowed, I would not take the first POI from any opponent whenever it comes in my speech. I would not take a POI when I'm in the middle of a point, when I'm not transiting from one point to another. Why? Because I'm not comfortable, or I'm not prepared. My mental clarity is not there. I will be distracted and I'll lose track of what I'm talking about if I take an opponent's POI in the middle of the point that I'm making, in the middle of an example that I'm delivering, in the middle of a piece of evidence that I'm delivering. Right? So as not to be distracted, so as not to be stumped, I would not take a POI which is not strategically timed for me, number one. And number two, I'll take as few as possible. The maximum that you're obliged to take in any debate, as a debater, are 2 POIs. You take more than that, that's not going to help you, that's not going to do you any good. So do not take points of information more often than you need to, and do not take points of information because you need content to meet the 7 minutes minimum, to not under time in an 8-minute speech format. Forgive the slip of tongue there, right? So be very careful how you deal with POIs. Offer as many as you can, take as few as you can. Only offer POIs that you know are going to do damage, and only take POIs when you are very, very, very absolutely comfortable and you're in cruise control mode. Got it? All the best.